Perhaps it's warmer where you live at the moment. At least that's the case for me right now in Colorado, surprisingly. Here's fun 5 spring fragrances that I have for you for the upcoming season. So I do have 3 of them with me right now in hand, and a couple of them that I want to talk about I don't actually own, but I really enjoyed them when I smelled them in person at various occasions. So we'll go and start with those first. So in no particular order, I do want to start with MFK's Gentle Fluidity Silver. I smelled this the other day at Neiman Marcus. I just really enjoy what it brings to the table. I don't know too many fragrances, or I'm just not that familiar with the note of juniper in general, but I have smelled a lot of juniper trees, just hiking and such, and I like the way it is used in perfumery, especially Gentle Fluidity Silver. It's giving you that crisp greenness, but it's not too overpowering like it may be with the actual tree. So I do really like the musk and woods it's still giving you there, very airy, light. And then the vanilla note is, it's somewhat sweet, but it's almost just this creaminess, this kind of effervescence. But yeah, perfect for hotter weather. You could definitely wear this maybe in the summer too, if you don't find the vanilla too cloying. But again, for a vanilla, it's a lot less sweet. Not really trying to make it gourmand, just kind of blending these elements together. Creating airiness, balance, and it's very nice. Maybe I would put it in the collection someday, but at the moment, that price point is not exactly ideal for me. But it is a really good spring summer scent. And absolutely, if you can get a sample or go to a store and try it out, I highly encourage to do so. Great scent. And then the other fragrance I do want to talk about is Louis Vuitton's L'Immensité. That's probably my favorite LV fragrance at the moment in terms of, their core collection. Not really in the price range that I'd be comfortable paying at the moment, but I think it is noticeable in that it's a citrus fragrance, but it does push longer with a lot of ambroxan and woods. Maybe some ambergris or amber note too. But yeah, I think the way it pushes through is nice. For a citrus fragrance, it doesn't have any sweetness. It's more almost bordering, kind of savory in a way, not necessarily, but it's just more of this really citric fragrance without a touch of sweetness. Like for example, Vibrato or, Tarathi Blue, Tigar, those kind of citrus fragrances, I think have a little bit more sweetness. But for me, yeah, this is kind of my favorite one out of that family of fragrances. Again, could be spring or summer. And then, like I said, I do like that it pushes through for a citrus fragrance because a lot of those synthetic molecules, making the fragrance last a little longer. For L'Immensité, I'm sure, if that's not in your price bracket, like I mentioned for myself, you can likely find, dupes, alternatives, inspired buys, if you will. So absolutely, we could take a look at that someday, but I'm sure they're out there and you can find them, I'm sure. And again, yeah, I think it's a really great fragrance, but of course I always, advocate to sample. So if you can sample it or go in store, give it a try. I think you might be surprised how much you like it. All right, and now to the bottles that I actually have in hand finally. My third one will be Silver Birch from Amoroud. I think this is a lovely company based out of New York, I believe. They're really delivering niche at a lot of discounters at least. The prices are pretty solid. I would say slightly over 100 or, a lot of bottles I've found sub 100 easily. Both of my bottles I actually got used, so I'm probably around that $70 mark as well. But yeah, for the quality they're delivering, really advocate for Amoroud as a brand. I've only tried a couple of their white bottles in terms of, sampling and the ones that I bought full bottles of, but they have the same exact bottle in a dark bottle, kind of representing their darker fragrances. So I would really like to try those at some point. But for now we have Silver Birch. And I would say this is almost an all year kind of fragrance as well. Maybe not too heavy, not heavy enough for the winter, but I wore it this winter a lot, honestly, and I had really no issue. Then again, I was in more of an office setting, so that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, really all season, but absolutely is going to really push through in the spring and summer. Really like the way this is balanced out. You have so many accords really dancing and working well together. Go ahead and get this on tester and skin and just talk about it more. So certainly on skin, it's coming off a lot darker, but generally I think that's what kind of happens with fragrances for myself. It's a little more airy on the strip. Some of the notes to keep in mind is fig alide, which is kind of a fig accord. Maybe on screen I'll put the oil house that makes it, because I think it is a trademarked accord. So yeah, the opening is really fig heavy, a little bit of mandarin orange as well. And then I do really like the way this dries down. You have it's just creating this nice juxtaposition of airy notes, a little bit of citrus and fruitiness, and as well as, the white floral. So It's really working well with those darker bass notes and just creates this, kind of unique symphony that I haven't really experienced in this way, at least. A lot of fragrances aim again to, find this balance when creating a fragrance, especially something a little more niche. But yeah, this just does everything so well. I like the longevity and the way this comes off of my skin. Not an offensive smell either, but certainly like a little more, not even sophisticated, but definitely complex. This is just kind of a nice freshie with depth, but it will be certainly attention grabbing because it's just something different, and I think Amoroud in general as a brand is just very different. I found out about them from Kaleidoscope Scent Index. He's got a lot of great ball knowledge, man. He's put me onto so many brands and fragrances. I just keep aspiring to learn and, find that interest in fragrance the deeper you go into the rabbit hole, if you will. But yeah, thank you for that recommendation of the brand. This one you could really dress up or down. I see myself wearing these on more casual days, but also, absolutely in the office if you need to dress up, nicer occasions, anything really. This is pretty much checks all the boxes. All right, this is an interesting one that I've added, somewhat recent into the collection. This is my first Montale as well. I haven't had too much familiarity with the brand. I do like Mancera a lot too. They're kind of the two, companies to one another for Pierre Montale as the owner. And, apparently he does all the perfumery as well. I don't know how true that is or not, but I do have Oudyssee here, which is a very interesting take on a oud fragrance because it is more of a fresh citrus with, oud in the background. And yeah, this is gonna work perfect for spring. I'll talk more about the nuances once we get it on skin and tester. Also, the little clip is so interesting to me. I was able to get a full bottle. I have seen on the tester though, it's not actually there. It's just part of the cap. So yeah, this is a super interesting fragrance. It's really a citrus, peppery bomb at the opening. Some people might say the opening is maybe like the harshest part, might be a criticism of this fragrance. I could definitely see that. It's not too bothersome to me, at least. But yeah, it is very intense with the citrus, with ginger. But yeah, really where my favorite highlight of this fragrance comes in is the, mid to dry down. You get a little bit of some ambers. I believe there's a tea like mate note in there as well. Again, I don't get a ton of lavender, but I think it is, just mixing in there, trying to incorporate with the other accords to again, to kind of, achieve the blend that they were going for. And then yeah, that oud is more of just a woody nuance in the background, and as it dries down, that woodiness starts to come through more. And I really do think that's the perfect point where the citruses have died down a little bit and the woods have come forward. And yeah, it just makes this really nice fragrance. I've heard a lot of people say in the reviews that this isn't a commonality for Montale, so it's cool to see something that the brand doesn't make that often. And I thought that was fun to, be my first Montale, something that's not really what they're known for. I know they are known for their like heavier projecting, heavier lasting, very intense fragrances like Arabian's Tonka, I believe oud, honey and oud, something like that as well. Infinity is one I really want to try too, but it is cool to see them take this lighter approach. This is a more understated fragrance, doesn't push too hard, at least on my skin. You can go a little harder on the sprays as well. And yeah, it's just again something different still. This is very friendly for like most environments, and of course, like the list says, spring and summer, this is going to do its best, I think. But yeah, this could even, if you were obsessed with this fragrance, this could be your signature for sure. Price point is really good too. A lot of Montales at discounters, you're gonna get them for under 70, sometimes under 60. But yeah, fun brand to try out for sure. I smelled this one at kind of like a boutique store, but there's a lot of Montales I haven't smelled. Again, I say to sample everything if you can, but definitely Montale is one of those companies that's very tricky. A lot of people will give, criticisms to the perfumery itself, feeling too synthetic, too overdosed in a lot of different molecules. So yeah, just, find a way to ensure that this is a house for you. Same with Mancera as well. Just double check this is, something you really want to get into, as it is your hard-earned money, and I just want to make sure that you're getting the products that you want. Alrighty, we've got Reef 29. This is probably the most understated brand on this list, perhaps. It is coming in at a pretty affordable price point, and they're a Middle Eastern niche house. There's some fragrances in the line that are loosely tied to other fragrances, might have inspiration from other fragrances. Some people kind of say this is like a mix of Dior Homme Intense with a little bit of Baccarat, maybe, but that's just, you know, because the note breakdown says so. It's, you know, a little bit of amber, iris, and saffron, I believe. Reef is really known for their simple note breakdown, so I really think, again, you know, this would be harder to sample, but if you can sample, somehow get a decant, absolutely do so. Just because I don't think the note breakdown is going to tell you the whole story in terms of this fragrance. But yeah, we'll get it on tester skin, and I'll tell you, you know, kind of what I'm feeling from it. Okay, yeah, so again, a little bit darker on skin versus the tester. This one, just like Gentle Fluidity, is kind of more airy in its nature. Especially the opening just has this light quality to it, really nice. Gonna be very enjoyable in the spring and summer. So I'm actually looking forward to wearing this more in this warmer weather. I've only had this, I think I bought this for Christmas as a gift to myself. And yeah, you know, I haven't experienced, I think, its full potential. This is definitely lighter wearing. Not gonna be the longest lasting on this list, but I think, you know, it's plenty long lasting enough. Again, very versatile. If somebody was really into these notes, or, you know, the blending of the notes, I think this could be a great signature as well. Not gonna offend people too. Very unisex, especially. I think anyone would enjoy wearing this. And yeah, I think, again, kind of, you know, not overly intimate, but it is more on the intimate side for a fragrance. It's not going to be something that's like trying to push hard, you know, trying to really outreach to other people. But I do think in its makeup, it is, you know, interesting. It does have a lot of notes that people are fairly common with if, you know, people are into fragrance, but it's done in a way that comes off unique to me. I would honestly say I get some designer qualities to it, but I just like that it's done in a different way. And like the formulation is just its own thing. And it's kind of fun. You know, a lot of niche houses have done that. I feel like they're putting those extra details onto a more designer or mass appealing fragrance. And yeah, Reef 29 is a perfect example of that. I'll probably say Silver Birch and Reef 29 on the list are like the most calming fragrances, at least to me. You know, they just give me that boost in mood, but not necessarily like in an energizing way. Just kind of in a, you know, laid back, easing your mind a little bit type of way. Man, these are all so good. Kind of my small list, you know, this is just the beginning of the summer, so I'm absolutely happy to make more lists, kind of switch it up, see what I start wearing more as the spring progresses. But for now, I think that's a good start. You know, these are all nice fragrances, I think, in the collection. Really appropriate for any age. You know, I'm not a big stickler on like age or, yeah, gender in terms of, you know, masculine, feminine leaning. Wear whatever you'd like. But I do really think a lot of people are going to enjoy these. They don't feel too out of date. They don't feel too trend grabbing either. You know, I think these could really be timeless collection pieces if that's what you're looking for. Again, you know, as always, every video, I'm going to keep nailing it and send everybody, including myself. You know, we need to sample as much as we can when we have the opportunity. I've seen a lot of people, you know, make the mistake of losing a lot of money just from blind buying. I've done it myself too as well in the past, of course. And, you know, that's kind of my big thing that I want to advocate for within my content. You know, it's really great to enjoy fragrance, and I love the community that we've all been a part of, you know, but at the same time, you know, we don't want to overly absorb in that content and that community. We need to understand what's the best for us. And yeah, sampling is, you know, probably the most effective way to do that. So yeah, I'm going to remind you guys every time. And, you know, it's a good reminder for myself, as I said as well. So that rounds out the 5 spring, you know, kind of going into summer too as well. A lot of these could do either. But yeah, that rounds it out. I hope you like this list. I definitely want to make more list type of videos. I know a lot of people really enjoy those. So I appreciate your time. I'll see you in another. Take care. Oh yeah. Sorry. Like and subscribe as well. I always forget to mention that, but I'm not trying to pressure you guys. You know, I'm just here. All right. Peace out for real this time.